Hi there, welcome to Operance, probably the world's easiest building information management platform your team will ever use. Today I'm going to give you an insight into our product, the Digital O&M, an end-to-end solution for contractors and clients to curate, access and maintain digital O&M information. I'm going to start by giving a quick introduction to the business and explain why we do what we do. So the business was started back in 2016. It was named BIMsense because we're a BIM consultancy. Now, the idea was that we could use BIM processes in order to structure data in a way that we could provide then software solutions in order to help manage and maintain that information in a more efficient way. Now, between us, we've got over 50 years experience in the construction and property management industry. Therefore, that experience of where the problems are is what goes into the product to see if we can solve them for our customers and clients. In order to deliver our bigger vision, which was in effect to change construction, digitize it and make it more efficient, then we needed to get out of the industry altogether. So we therefore based ourselves at the Centre for Digital Innovation, C40I, easy for some to say. Here, we based ourselves on one side, server architects, data scientists, software developers, and more. The idea was that they could help us imagine new ways of working within the construction industry, whilst we lent our industry experience back. In doing so, we started working for some very large estates clients across the country. Again, we were helping them make sense of BIM by clearly defining their information requirements to produce lean, simple BIM, and therefore create a help and better return on their BIM investment. We felt we were doing so well about it, we wrote the book on it, BIM for Estates. Some will tell you it got #1 bestseller status on Amazon, but I will be quick to point out it was quite a small niche, so we won't get too excited. Following that, we employed Tim Mutler as our Chief Technology Officer. Tim came on board with lots of different experience in the software industry world. So therefore, with Ian being the data scientist, if you like, and Tim being the computer scientist, the one behind the technology, we therefore tied data into the technology, and it needed interfaces in which end users could understand and actually make use of, which is my job. And then we got investment from the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. So this is direct money from the central government. The idea here was, with that investment, we can then develop a solution that could produce not just digital O&M information, but also building safety information in line with the new Building Safety Act. Now, with that investment and sales going forwards and new customers come on board all the time, we've been able to grow our team consistently, and it's still going. Together, we've won various different awards over the years, which is always nice, and we're always working collectively towards our vision of managing the world's building information for safer, more harmonious places for everyone. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Well, let's say you've just been handed over a building. You've got the keys to it. This is day one of occupation. The contractor has developed all that information and now wants to hand it over. Well, what are they handing over? It's usually paper-filled ring binders, and in fact, lots of paper. But it could also be PDFs as well, or certainly replacement for the paper. People are moving more towards PDFs, and unfortunately, this also means a lot of PDFs. Now, those could be handed over on disks, and they could be handed over in USB sticks, for example. But we're also now being handed over BIM models and what's called COBie data as well. So we have a mixture of paper, PDF, BIM models, and COBie data. And then we may have access to information on an online cloud operated O&M platform where all this information is stored in what is called the handover data silo. This is one set of information collectively in which to understand the building that you've now taken charge of. Now, the problem here is a lot of this information is paper or PDF, and there's not a lot you can do with that information. However, you have it. You have information about your building. And therefore, what you now need to do is feed that into the in-occupation data silo. In effect, this is where you manage and maintain this building continuously going forwards. Here, you will receive new paper, new electronic data and PDFs throughout the life cycle of the building, obviously. You may also get updated BIM models as you've been expanding or altering those buildings. And you also get asset management information as well to say how that building is being used. And collectively, all this information should be held within the AFM system, the Computer-Aided Facilities Management Platform. So now you've got two data silos. You've got the information that was handed over at the beginning of your occupation stage and the information that's been constantly developed throughout the building's life cycle history. Now, you would hope that the information feeds back and forth into each other. The handover information easily should feed into the FM solution, and then it should feed back in order to keep the original building information up to date. However, that doesn't generally happen. The problem being, because you had paper and PDF information at the very beginning, and even with the inclusion of the BIM models and Curate data, it's still incredibly difficult to move that information from that silo into the FM platforms or asset management platforms. It's incredibly difficult to do, and it usually means using a third-party piece of software in order to transfer information across to one. But then you've got to move it back, which never really happens, and therefore the existing handover pack information becomes redundant, and it sits on a shelf gathering dust, as we all know. So what can we do? Well, with that information, there's not a lot we can do with it. Can we access it? Well, if it's paper ring binders, it might be locked in somebody's room. Can everybody get access to that? Is it in PDF format? Does therefore everybody have access to the correct filing systems, whether it be a CDE or a Dropbox type environment? Does everybody have access to it? It's not always straightforward. Can you easily search for information through there? So again, if you've got 10, 20, 30 ring binders plus for your building, is it particularly easy to find the information instantly that you need? Obviously not. Even with PDFs, yes, you have the potentially the use of keyword searches, but it's still not ideal to find the exact thing that you're looking for. Sharing information is not particularly easy, particularly if it's in paper format again, and editing it is almost impossible across whether it's paper or PDF, because paper or PDF, when you think about it, is just dumb information. It's a photograph, if you like, either printed out on paper or printed out digitally to say, this is the information you've got. There's not much you can do with this now. It is what it is. So how do you update it? Well, again, it's now impossible to do. And even supplementing new information to it is quite difficult. Test certificates, that type of thing. Where do you put it? How do you add it towards it? But essentially, all that information, the biggest question you need to ask yourself about the information you're providing over as a contractor or the information you're receiving as a client is, how do we actually use this building information now? It's not particularly easy to do so. So therefore, your building straight away has some risks associated with it because of this information. Now, in terms of health and safety and well-being, are you able to keep this information up to date in order to safely make the environment safer for people to use? But also, is it being as efficient as it possibly can be? Are you reading information and understanding as the building was designed and as it was built is actually as it is performing day to day? And then in terms of the costs, are you actually spending more money through that life cycle project process than you should be? And then we've also got the new Building Safety Act and the Fire Safety Act and various other legislation to think about too. We've got to think about the fire safety information, the development of safety cases and key building information, as well as structural safety and MEP safety. All those tie together to make what's called a golden thread, which should also all tie back to that building and keep all that building information up to date throughout the concept, design, construction, and occupation phases. And information should be kept at the component level, which again is incredibly difficult to do if you have data silos like these, because information is instead just filed away in not so much random filings, but it might be MEP file, it might be flooring file, etc. Rather than information held against the actual boiler, for instance, or a fire door. Therefore, the information can then be updated against the component to give that audit trail the golden thread throughout its lifecycle history. So that's just some of the problems you face with traditional building information. And it all comes back to the client requirements. What did the client actually ask for in the first place? There's lots of information they probably want about their building, but who's actually asking for it? What formats are they asking it for? And has the end user actually been involved and given some feedback as to what information they need to keep that building safe every day? Well, now again, with the inclusion of the golden thread, it becomes a little bit harder because of the amount of information that is being pulled together. It's a bit like a shed, I always say. So my shed, it was always very nice and smart. As soon as I opened it up and started adding things there, I knew exactly what I wanted in my shed and why it should be in there. But then after time, things get just stored away and chucked away into there. Things get deleted out. It's the same with your information requirements. A lot of copy and paste is going on. Things get just chucked in there and nobody really understands why it's there. It becomes a bit of a mess over time. And in reality, what you need is a bit of a spring clean when it comes to your client information requirements. So whether you're the contractor or the client, have a really good look at the information requirements and understand why that information is being asked for, and is it going to provide benefit for the end users. Particular emphasis on the formats of the information provided. Is it those ring binders? Is it PDF filing systems? Or is it cloud-based data? Essentially, what you need to know is when, where, why, how, and where that information is going to be provided. You need to create this audit trail thereafter to make sure you've been given what you should be given. Essentially, it's time for change. We know what's happened in terms of the Building Safety Act. We know why that's there. And because of the lack of building information required for that particular building, in Grenfell, obviously we're talking about here, is it creates risks. And not just risks for the people that own those buildings, but people that live in with those buildings as well. So it's about time we had change and we started developing better building information from the client's perspective. From a contractor's perspective, providing better building information for your clients not only gives you a better USP amongst your contractors, competitors, but it also gives you essentially more cost savings as well by taking out the need for those traditional O&M providers, the armies, if you like, of document controllers, finding paper, finding PDF and pulling them all together to populate those manuals. What we need is a better way. Operance, we like to think, is that better way. Operance is this single source of truth. It's where all your building information is pulled together, not just during the design and construction phase, but throughout the entire occupation phase. Yes, it's in line with the Building Safety Act, and it does provide certain golden thread of information requirements, such as key building information, safety cases, risk assessments, etc. But what we're looking at here today is the digital O&M and the information that needs to be provided and kept up to date throughout the lifecycle history. Operance is a better way to do that for contractors. Not only can we help you pull all that information together, we do it in a simple 4-step process. We call this define, curate, access, and maintain. Define is where we help your clients and your contractor team define what information requirements are needed, and we set that up using our data templates. Now, we don't use Excel spreadsheets for that. We've created something far more smarter. So our data templates are in-app and they have various different benefits to them, and I'll show you them in a second when we go through the demonstration. Curate is then where we semi-automatically provide the information and then curate and pull together the manuals that they're associated with. The O&M manuals, health and safety files, building user guides, building logbooks, and more. So by semi-automating the curation of that information, again, we're saving cost on the use of manual labor in order to do so. And then obviously we need to access that information, and so do our clients. I'll show you how that works and how we use, in effect, what's called Google Your Buildings to find all your information anytime, anywhere. And then maintain is how you keep that information up to date throughout the lifecycle history, and you can actually use it for maintaining the facilities going forwards too. A little bit then about our customers. So our end users at the moment and existing customers. We have a vast array of tier 1 contractors on board now. We've got modular builders, we've got housing associations, local authorities, government departments, you know it. Lots of different people using the system day to day, which is great news, and we're fully aware of each person's individual requirements, and we try and embrace them to come in, encourage them to give us their feedback and keep on developing the platform in line with their particular needs. Okay, so without further ado, let's get straight into the actual presentation. So if I stop sharing that one, and then we'll go straight into here. Okay, so this is the projects board on Operance. This is within the digital O&M product. Within Curate here, you can see lots of different projects. But before we go into that, I want to start from the beginning. I want to take you to define. So if you remember those 4 steps, define, curate, access, and maintain, the first thing we need to do is define the information requirements at the very beginning. Who needs what information and why? Well, we do that through the use of our data templates. So this is the data template library, and we can search through lots of different things in terms of data templates for buildings, floors, spaces, systems, that type of thing. Once we've picked a particular data template, we can then add it into the system, or we can edit it to suit your particular needs. However, let's say we want to start from scratch. Well, we can go in here and we can create a new data template. We can pick what it's relevant to. And that's part of the beauty of the system. These data templates are incredibly powerful. We can create a template for a component itself, so the individual boiler, for instance, or it could be the component types. Let's say it's a set of fire doors. Then we can create the type, which will then replicate information across those doors. But it can be about the zones, the systems, the floors, the spaces, the buildings itself. But then it can also take into account individual manuals. So such as the health and safety file, the building user guide, building logbook, fire safety manuals. We can do it for sustainability information. The choices are pretty much endless. But let's say we're creating one now for a space. What we can also add in are the unit class classification codes against a space and the particular information that we're pulling together here. And that makes information more accessible through the platform and in line with the new ISO 19650 standards. Now, within a space, what we're saying here is within a space, within every building, this is the information we want generically. And then we can edit from there to ask for more information relevant to each in particular space or building. So for instance, we now add in the property sets. So it could be architectural data. And then within that, we add in the pieces of information that we need to see from the team. So that team could be the contributors, for instance, are the suppliers, the manufacturers, the designers, your internal teams. It could be anybody. So what we're saying here is within this space, we want to see architectural data. And within that, we want to see ceiling finishes, floor finishes, net areas, etc., etc. We can keep adding as much as you want. And we do this at the very beginning. We still have our digital services team that we started off back in 2016 with, but now they support the software team and our customers. As soon as a new customer comes on board, our team is there to help develop their data templates and set in stone exactly what their requirements are from an organizational level and from a legislation level as well. So we create data templates as well for things like the building safety guides, safety cases and safety case reports, that type of thing. We put them in place following feedback from the safety regulator as well, and following such information that may be released, such as key building information that was recently prescribed by law, we can take that and create a template out of it to make sure our users are providing the information they need. Excuse me. The other thing that we can do with the data templates is add in these tags. Now, these tags are super clever. What they do is enable us to reduce the amount of duplication in the platform and send information where it needs to go. So, for instance, we're saying this information is relevant to an O&M manual, a health and safety file, and a building user guide. But there's more tags we can add in there as well. Again, the building logbook, for instance. But going back to the Building Safety Act, we can add in there things like fire safety, structural safety, MEP safety, etc., etc. Again, the tags are kind of never ending. We can keep adding them in there. Now, the beauty of the tags is this. Let's say, for instance, on your projects, you've got a set of 5, 10 manuals, all individual, but all asking for the same thing at the front, which is the project description. Now, project description, when you look back at your manuals, will probably be different in every single manual for the one project. And that's either because it's copy and paste or because people have a different interpretation of your projects. Therefore, information gets pulled together and added into each of those individual documents separately. Whereas what we're doing here is you add the information once and then bum, 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 it sends it where it needs to go automatically. You edit that information and bum, 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 it sends it back all together as one. So you're not having to individually update each document every time a change is made. So that's the beauty of the tags. And what we're also doing is then creating alerts based on if information changes. So if it's fire safety information, for instance, and that changes, that will send an alert to let you know that something's changed and it's relevant to fire safety. Would you like to check this? And you can go in and accept, reject, that type of thing. Okay, so that's the data templates. That's how we define the information requirements at the beginning. Now, to set up a project, and as you can see here, each one of these cards is an individual project. And they're all split between these 4 phases: concept, design, construction, and occupation. As you can see, they're all aligned with the REBA stages that we're all very used to. And they're split by these new gateways 1, 2, and 3. And that's part of the new Building Safety Act for what we call higher risk buildings. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this here because I cover that in various other videos in terms of building safety. But a higher risk building is in effect a 7-story building or 18 meters high, whichever comes first, and has at least 2 residential flats or dwellings. Or if it's in the design and construction phase, is a brand new hospital or refurbished facility or a care home. However, we're not going to touch into those today. This could be for anything that we're talking about today. It could be schools, it could be small homes, it could be absolutely anything you wish. Therefore, how do we add a project? Well, we can do it a number of ways. We can either add it manually. So we go in and we add the information about the building. We add in the client name to see if we've got any of those data templates already set up for that client. So if you're a contractor working for, I don't know, let's say UCL in London, we may have templates already set up for them. So we won't have to do that again. We simply add it here, add project, and it automatically uploads all their information requirements so that you know you're providing the information they've requested. So we could do it that way. However, we could also do it by using a BIM model or Kirby data. So for instance, if we had a BIM model, we could pick the model, we could assign that to a particular project. And what this does is structure the information requirements. So we pick an IFC model, it could be one or it could be numerous. And what it does is actually upload that building, those models to the project in order to create the buildings and every entity level that becomes below it. So the floors, the spaces, etc. So as they come through, we can check that. We see it in the project. As they come through, it can tell us what's in that model. So for the facility, the 7 floors, 126 spaces, and several 100,000 classified assets. That's great. We say we're happy with that, and that I'll archive it. Then if we go to data, this is now where the supply chain provides the data they need about your building. So what that's done by uploading the BIM model, and again, we can do that with the Curate data spreadsheet too, is split that information and define the individual buildings, the floors, spaces, types, as in the component types, the systems and the components. So let's take the building as an example. So this is the building level. So this is one particular building. As we can see, we've got uploaded in here the data template for buildings. We can see the data template essentials, and here is the information that's been defined within that template. So for instance, statutory approvals, it's now asking for every one of this client's buildings to provide statutory approvals, such as building regulations, local planning, approval documents, that type of thing. It's the same with floors. Within floors, we can assign different information requirements now that are essential to each individual floor in every one of those buildings. So architectural drawings, for instance, elevations, floor finishes, ceiling plans, etc. We define exactly what's required, and then somebody has to go in and provide those in documents. It's the same with spaces. The component types, for instance, again, is where we can start seeing information being provided at a higher level and spread to the lower levels if we need to. But also there's information that's very specific to component types that is not specific to the individual type. Let's take, for instance, internal fire doors. So we can see here the internal fire doors is a type, but then we've got 52 individual components. So that's 52 individual fire doors. So we provide information about the types of fire doors, who the manufacturer is, what are their contact details, etc. We can put all that into the system, and then we can do it for the individual components should we want to. But again, doing it at the component type saves a lot of time. The systems, then we look and we find the systems, and we can be things like the heating and cooling systems, that type of thing as well. And it's here that you start seeing some more benefits in terms of having digital building information. So for instance, the date of installation. If that ties in with the warranty period, which could be, say, 10 years, and that's been added elsewhere, then we can create alerts and notifications to say when that is going to run out. Now, components, individual components. So let's take this individual distribution board, for instance. We can add in who the manufacturer is. We can either do full bodies of text, paragraphs, that type of thing, however you want, or we can simply just drop information into these individual boxes. It's really simple. And plus, we can still add in the odd PDF. Now, PDFs are still required as much as we're trying to remove them, but things like test certificates and that type of thing will still always be provided, certainly in the near future, in a PDF format. So therefore, we still need to enable them, and that's fine. So we upload them as they come through, we click on them, and we can still see them through the browser. Now, all that information is coming through, and we're doing lots of different ways in order to help that information populate on your behalf. Because the one big problem that we know is nobody really likes pulling O&M information together. As a result, it can be inaccurate. It can take lots of time. Ideally, what we want is the information to come direct from the manufacturers themselves. In doing this, we know the information is going to be mostly correct. So ways in which we're doing that is you can either fill in the information yourself into here, and you can save it as a template, and therefore you never have to provide all that generic information about that one distribution board again. It's there, you've saved it, you can do it again on the next project, What we also want to do is either get the manufacturers involved and start providing this information themselves so we know it's accurate and therefore reduces the need to do the auditing of their information, or we do that for them as well on their behalf. So we've been doing some tests recently with machine learning and artificial intelligence. Now with AI, we've been able to pull in information based on things such as the model name. By pulling that information through, it populates within seconds, and therefore the information is probably going to be correct. So somebody just needs to go in, review that. That's the definitely the serial number or the model of the equipment that they've fitted, and then everybody's happy. We're still going through lots of testing, but we're going to be excited to release that soon. Okay, so once all that information's come through, if you remember, within the templates, we've assigned a tag behind each of these lines to say what that information is relevant to. So as soon as people start adding information into the system, it starts populating the manuals that they're relevant to without them even knowing it. So if we click in manuals, this is now where we access the information. So from here, for instance, we've got the O&M, the health and safety file, building logbook, so on and so forth. From here, now we can Google your building. So if we type in a boiler, for instance, and we click search against this particular project, now we can see the two types of boilers that are being used on that project. So we open one of them, and now we can see the information that was relevant to it. So this again is all the information requirements that were defined by the customer at the very beginning using our data templates. So now the information's being inputted, it starts coming through here automatically. So if it says awaiting data, that's fine. That means the supply is still providing the data, but you, either contractor or the client, can go in and check that information at any time. And we can do off reports to show what information has been provided or what's still outstanding. Okay, so that's pretty much everything. So how to define, curate, access and maintain your building information through the use of the Operance digital O&M solution. I hope that's been of use. Keep your eye out for lots more videos for us in terms of building safety and lots of other new features that are coming soon. Take care. Bye now.